I had hundreds of people. I had tapes of people who wanted to be disc jockeys. I had people hanging around in the hallway trying to get in to see me. I mean, there were always, and all the time we were in Chesterfield Gardens, there were thousands of people trying to bang on all the doors to get in. We had studios in the basement and testing people out, see if they could do the job or not. And our standards weren't that high. I mean, our standards included them not earning that much money, being prepared to spend months out in the middle of nowhere, getting seasick, and delivering a reasonable level of programming. And that was about it. And some of them fell by the wayside, and some of them became household names.
First of all, I met a guy called Chris Moore, who I went into his office, and he was standing on his head throwing darts at a dartboard, which was unusual. He was the program director. I did the tape. He said, that's quite good. He said, do it again, which I did. And he said, would you like to come back at lunchtime? And I came back, and he said, when can you start on the ship? So I said, well, when would you like me? So he said, well, how about tomorrow? So I said, well, could I make it the day after? Which I did, and he took me out there, and that's how I ended up at Radio Caroline, South.
Piracy. That's what's happening here, with the connivance of almost every teenager in southeast England at any rate. We're bound for Radio Caroline, the pirate ship that for over a year has given pop music to something like 20 million listeners, as their advertising sales staff claim.
Sometimes people would be reasonably popular and seem to be reasonably good at it, but at a certain point, megalomania would set in, and that thing would go to their head, and they decided they needed more money, and they wanted to come ashore and become superstars, etc., and they'd have little mutinies and all kinds of trouble. And some of them were impossible, and I would fire them. And then along would come Ronan or somebody else and rehire them, and suddenly I'd find I had this, I just fired somebody, and 2 days later, I had the same guy, and there he was back on the firm again.
I think there were about 90 or 95 disc jockeys that were fired during the time Radio Caroline was on the air. We had a scroll of honor, and everybody who was fired, we jotted their name down. I was never fired by Radio Caroline, one of the very few radio stations I wasn't fired from. The reason for that was I was hired by Ronan O'Reilly, and Alan Crawford, who was the other side, I was hired as a singer by him. So whenever one got more control of the other, in other words, if Alan Crawford got control, he would always sack Ronan O'Reilly's disc jockeys and vice versa, and I was always in the middle. So I got on well with both of them. I was very lucky.
Culturally, I wouldn't have jived too well with Radio Atlanta. That was the problem, purely cultural, nothing personal. I mean, this chap Alan Crawford used to want to do cover versions of everything. They thought that the sort of music that we were playing, that they couldn't sing in tune. That was their point of view.
Last night I said these words to my girl. I know you never even try, girl. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on.
We ended up with a system of, it was like a railway station with trombone players and violin players arriving at such a minute and going, and we were doing one hit copy every 23 minutes.
Why do I always have to say love?
So I kept on getting these strange cover versions of records, sort of Can't Buy Me Love by The Three Curtains, or all these terrible cover versions of records, which I suppose he had a right to have played, but I wasn't going to play them. So I threw them out the porthole, which didn't exactly befriend me to him, but the station was sounding the better as a result.